So one of the big things that we're getting all the time now is hearing about this BSR. Everybody tells us about this BSR, bestseller rank. Guys, this is something that we haven't heard at all anything about until the last couple months. One of the big kind of scamster programs out there is really pushing this term now, this BSR term. And yeah, to be completely honest, I just don't know where this came from. So we're going to go through and actually show you what the difference between BSR and sell-through ratio is and why we use sell-through ratio, because it's really important to understand what these two metrics are actually measuring, and then it's going to become really clear why BSR, again, you have to watch out right now. There's so many internet marketers trying to scam people since e-commerce is just blowing up. And this is, a lot of scamsters try to push this BSR number, try to make it sound a lot, easier than it is. Guys, BSR is just not going to play a factor at this stage in the game. So let's go over and talk about BSR versus sell-through ratio, the differences between them, and why we focus on sell-through ratio a little bit more. So yeah, obviously, we're going to really rely on sell-through ratio a lot more than BSR. BSR is bestseller rank, right? So it's literally measuring the volume of sales for one specific product from one specific vendor, right? So BSR is, I'll show you exactly what it is for anyone who hasn't seen it. So if you go on Amazon and, let's go to the bestseller rank. Or here, even better, let's go to, apparently, oh, okay, I got my pen on, that's why. One sec. Got to turn my pen off, and then we will check out BSR. Cool. All right, so here's Amazon. If we go to the bestseller rank or bestseller list here, if we go through here, and an even better example too would actually be the silicone barbecue glove that we always make fun of. So this silicone barbecue glove, if we go to the #1 silicone barbecue glove, I mean, let's go to the top 4, right? The BSR is down here in the product details on Amazon. So the Amazon bestseller rank on this is 152 in this category, #2 in this category. So, this is a great BSR. So obviously we should do this product, right? That's what a lot of these internet marketing scamsters want you to think these days, because again, they're trying to sell these $6,000 programs, just ridiculous. But so here's the bestseller rank, 152. By their metrics, you should just go straight into this product, right? Here's another product with the bestseller rank of 147. Incredible, right? #1 in protective mitts. My God, this is going to be a slam dunk, right? Here's another one here. Number 1,379. That's still pretty good, right? #13 in the mitts. Here's the 4th product. Oh wait, number 9,000. My God, what's happening here, right? So guys, the bestseller rank is literally just measuring one specific listing on Amazon, one product from one seller. So again, it doesn't take the market into account. The bestseller rank, again, is it's just measuring the volume of one single product. It doesn't at all factor in the market. So bestseller ranking does not factor in the fact that there's over 2,000 people selling the exact same product, right? Every single one of these products is going to have a different BSR. So, if we go to the last page here, if we go to page 20, and there's probably pages after that. Yeah, it's not even close. So if we go to page 20 here, here's some cooking gloves as well. These people, number 400,000 BSR, right? So guys, BSR is just not, I don't know how you can use the metric reliably. I just don't think it's a good metric at all. Again, BSR is measuring the sales volume of one specific product from one specific seller. It doesn't take into account the actual market around that product. It just doesn't make sense to base anything on there. Sell-through ratio, on the other hand, is actually measuring the supply and demand dynamic for one specific product from all sellers, right? Sell-through ratio is measuring the relationship between the amount of buyers and the amount of sellers, right? So where BSR is just looking at how many have sold, number of sales, sell-through ratio is actually looking at percentage of products sold, right? So this is actually going to say, okay, this much inventory is actually moving. So sell-through ratio allows us to measure the saturation of a product rather than the sales volume of one specific seller's one specific product, right? So again, BSR is just, I don't know how people, I've really looked, guys, because we're getting a lot of questions about it. I've really looked and really tried to make BSR useful for this segment, and it's just not. It's just not a useful metric at all. I think it's a massive distraction, to tell you the truth. So sell-through ratio, again, is going to measure the product saturation. It's going to measure the supply and demand dynamic for that one specific product. Whereas BSR is literally just measuring the volume of one seller's one product. So it just doesn't make sense. There is exceptions to this, I'm sure. Again, the people that are, in my opinion, a lot of these other programs are just internet marketers trying to take advantage of a growing market. But I'm sure there's exceptions to this. I'm sure there's situations where the BSR does matter. For building successful multi-million-dollar businesses, I just don't see how it's useful. So there's definitely exceptions to it, I'm sure. Don't take our word as gospel. Definitely get out there. If you think you have some good way to use BSR, or if it's useful to you in some way, that's fine. Go ahead and use it, right? I'm not saying you just ignore it. You got to develop your own gut instincts in this business, right? You got to do your own thing and trial and error, figure out what works for you. But for for pretty much everyone here, for the strategy I'm going to show you today, and for building multi-million-dollar e-commerce companies, BSR is a distraction. It's a vanity metric. It's just a sexy number that people sell you so they can literally sell you their crap, basically. So sell-through ratio is what we're going to focus on. That's going to actually allow us to measure the supply and demand dynamic for a specific product. Hope that makes sense. And I'm going to go in just a little bit, guys. Again, there's a lot of internet marketers out there that are just trying to push random programs and stuff that just don't understand real business concepts, right? They just don't understand how business actually works. So I'm going to go through and actually show you guys some specific business concepts that really exemplify this bestseller ranking versus sell-through ratio argument, and why I really, really think you should actually stay completely away from BSR and just focus on sell-through ratio. So the first thing I want to show you here is basically just what happens to products over time. There's a process of product maturation and commoditization that happens to every single product in the economy and every single service in the economy. This is just a natural way of economic progression, right? This is how the economy progresses. So I'm going to show you guys this real quick. So you can see right here is user competition and basically how much people there are in the market, how many buyers there are in the market, and how much they care about these different brands and stuff, right? So you can see as you get more and more volume, people start caring less and less, and they really figure out what they want. The buyers figure out what they want, and it becomes a ubiquitous product, right? On the supply side of things, more and more sellers are going to constantly be entering any market that's profitable, right? So you're going to have more and more competition entering every single product that is profitable until there is just a ubiquitous product, right? Until it's just completely ubiquitous, until we're all just selling the same thing, right? So in the beginning of a market, you have a company really trying to get the product off the ground. There's a few sales and they're just trying to figure out how to make it work. Eventually, it all clicks, right? Eventually, the selfie stick is born, let's say. So eventually the selfie stick's finally born, and all of a sudden people are like, okay, selfie stick, I get it. I get what the product's for. They've communicated it well enough. I want a selfie stick, right? Let me buy the selfie stick. And suppliers also, the sellers also figure out how to sell the product, what people actually care about, what product they're going to use, how to make a good product, what to sell it at, all these things. Once everything's figured out, we hit this first big growth curve, right? We hit a massive growth curve where there's not a lot of sellers in the market, but there's a lot of buyers entering into the market. Everybody's buying selfie sticks. People see selfie sticks out on the streets. They're like, man, where do I get a selfie stick? There's blog posts going out. People are making fun of selfie sticks. Disney's banning selfie sticks. And more people are just naturally finding out about selfie sticks and going out to buy them, right? Now, in phase one here, we had to actually go out and find people to sell selfie sticks to. Now it's just spreading like wildfire, right? It's just this natural viral movement, and everybody's buying selfie sticks. The market's just flooding, and the people that are in the market, the sellers, are just making a killing, right? At a certain point, everybody starts to realize, holy cow, this selfie stick thing is taking off, right? So then you have all the buyers, pretty much all the buyers who wanted to buy a selfie stick at that point already have their selfie stick, right? So now the volume's going to start dropping off. People don't really care about the different selfie sticks. They just kind of want a selfie sticks that works, and no one's excited about selfie sticks anymore. At the same time, you have Walmart and Target and all these huge companies saying, oh man, selfie sticks are really taking off, and people are making a 60, 80% margin on these selfie sticks. Why don't we enter the market and just undercut everybody and just sell a ton of them, right? So now you have Walmart entering the market, and all of a sudden it just turns into this massive price war where the market just gets flooded with selfie sticks, right? And at the same time the market's getting flooded, nobody cares about them anymore either, right? And then at that point, it literally just becomes a dead market. And it literally just becomes, why would anyone get into this market? Because Walmart is taking 7% margin on their selfie sticks, and everybody's selling the things too. There was a period where people would see selfie sticks out at Disney World and they would go home and buy a selfie stick online. Now Disney themselves is selling selfie sticks, right? Now everybody is selling it, and everybody's selling the same product, right? It's become a commodity. There's no new buyers entering the market. Everybody knows about them. Everybody who wants one bought one. And at the same time, Walmart and Disney are buying a ton of them, right? So guys, this is how every single product in the economy works. This is the natural progression of how products work. To give you an example, an idea of where bestseller ranking and sell-through ratio would fit into this, if I can remove my pen real quick. So if you look, again, bestseller ranking, this is going to be the highest bestseller ranking right here, right? Oh my God, we've hit #1 BSR. Our BSR is great. So this is where the high BSRs live. And this is where your sell-through ratio at this point is going to be abysmal, right? It's going to be 15, 20%, because everybody has these freaking selfie sticks and everybody's just trying to get rid of them because all the buyers already bought, right? So sell-through ratio up here is going to be super, super low because it's just flooded with supply, and and the buyers are all leaving the market, right? So sell-through up here is going to be very low. But bestseller ranking is going to be through the roof, right? #1 BSR, it's just huge, right? Everybody's selling it. So again, BSR of 1 up here. Down here, where we actually want to get in on products, here's where your BSR is going to be, who knows, right? Again, your BSR is just irrelevant at this point. Who knows what the BSR is down here? But we do know that the sell-through ratio down here is going to be, 80%, 70%, anything like that. The natural progression of any successful product, any profitable product, is for buyers to buy it, right? Obviously, the buyers are going to buy it, and as the buyers, as the product kind of spreads like wildfire, more and more sellers are going to come into the market. And that's where this whole price war concept comes into play. And guys, there's no way to prevent this. This is how the economy works. This is called the product life cycle, right? Every product becomes a commodity eventually. So we want to really focus on finding products with great sell-through ratios, because that's going to enable us to find the next big thing, not take a product that's already been beat to hell with a high BSR, right? A high BSR just means a matured product, a product that is already done, right? We want to find the next big opportunity, and we use sell-through ratio to do that. To kind of put this into words, this is the commoditization path over time here. So you got the commoditization path over time. Again, stage 1 of any product, this happens again, guys, this isn't some proprietary system. This is just basic business knowledge. So it's really offensive to me that there's internet marketers out there trying to sell you programs that are just talking about BSR to hype it up and make it sound easy. It is easy when you know what you're doing, but guys, this is a very basic business concept that I think it's very irresponsible for that other program to be talking about BSR so much. But stage 1 of any product is the product or service is introduced to address a clearly defined product, right? This is where, again, we don't want to be the people that introduce a product for the first time. We don't want to be the first person ever to sell a selfie stick, right? We don't want to spend months of our lives developing selfie sticks and working with a China supplier to create the first selfie stick and pay $20,000 for the molds on the selfie sticks. We want to find a product that's really in stage 2 here. Stage 2, success inspires imitation and competition enters the marketplace. Once people see a successful product, once people realize that the selfie stick is going to sell, then that's where we want to be, right? We want to get in here and let's start selling into the curve, right? Into, the trend is your friend. Let's sell into the curve. So that success of the initial product, the selfie stick comes out. Everybody's like, oh my God, selfie stick, this thing is awesome, right? This thing, is a cool product, which we'll talk about more, what makes a product cool. But they saw this cool product. People are buying it like crazy. And again, success inspires imitation and competitors entering the marketplace. Once a bunch of competitors enter into a marketplace, then there's a whole bunch of people selling the same exact product, right? And that's when we're going to see people start to try to differentiate. And that's when we're going to make this transition from general arbitrage into private labeling, right? When we start private labeling, we're going to put different features, different functions on the product to drive increased complexity, it says here, but really increase differentiation. And this is where we see, the selfie stick breaking into the selfie stick with a Bluetooth remote and the selfie stick with a collapsible top that kind of grabs onto your phone. And here's a selfie stick that goes really long, and here's a short selfie stick, and here's a selfie stick that can stand up as a tripod, right? So this is where everybody starts trying to differentiate, create these different features, these different functions to enhance the value of their product and create a real brand out of the product, right? Eventually, after everybody kind of comes up with all the ideas and the market, people are going to start buying from the features that they really want. Through that, we're going to see the differentiation become increasingly blurred, right? So the first person to put a Bluetooth remote on a selfie stick, that was a pretty smart idea. Now every single selfie stick out there has a Bluetooth remote. The first person to make the selfie stick have that little clasp at the top that actually grabs your phone and holds it securely, that was a great idea. And I'm sure that made them a ton of sales for a while. But eventually all the other competitors said, that's a great idea. I'm going to put that on my product too. So in stage 4 here, the differentiation becomes much more blurry, right? You start losing track of which companies actually came up with the new ideas, and it all just kind of becomes the same, right? At this point, we have this one kind of selfie stick with the Bluetooth remote, with the top clasp thing, and they're all really the same, and it becomes a commodity, right? And that's when we're all just selling the same commoditized product, that's when revenues are going to start to decrease and margins are going to start to erode. Because the only way to beat the competition with the same exact product is to undercut them a lot of the times. And this is where we're going to see this is where we're going to see the price war happen. And this is where we're going to see, the Walmarts of the world start entering it and saying, okay, you're selling your selfie stick at 20 bucks. I'm going to sell it at 5. Go ahead and try to compete with me, right? So again, guys, we want to try to catch products early on, not when they have a BSR of 1, right? Because a BSR of 1 just means that they're already commoditized, that all the opportunity is already gone in that market. So just to talk through it a little bit here one more time. Again, your brand new cool product, nobody's seen this selfie stick before, it just came out, and there's very few sellers, right? There might only be 1 seller, there might be 3 sellers. Maybe it's some Chinese supplier that came up with a product and sold it to 5 sellers, right? So, excuse me. So there's just not that many sellers in the market, and it's this brand new cool product. I think the selfie stick is kind of the easiest example for everyone to remember here. I hate the fact that we're talking so much about selfie sticks today, but I think this is just a really good example to follow, okay? When the selfie stick first came out, again, it was a brand new cool product, right? Nobody had heard of it yet, and the first time you heard of it, you got it right away. It was a cool product, right? You either loved it or you hated it right off the bat. And to do that with a product, it has to really be clear. It has to really effectively communicate what that product does, right? So we all knew when we looked at the selfie stick, it was a brand new cool product, right? And there were probably 1,000 selfie sticks that came before the selfie stick craze, right? But someone got it right, and we saw that brand new cool product, and everybody was sharing it on Facebook. Everybody's blogging about it. Every website's talking about it. This is just a hot product, right? In this situation, again, guys, just think of it from a supply and demand dynamic and a BSR dynamic here. If you have a brand new cool product, when the selfie stick first came out, There was literally, you literally had the biggest blogs in the world talking about selfie sticks, millions and millions of people a day learning what selfie sticks were, going out to buy them, but there were only a few sellers that actually had them in stock, right? Brand new product, cool product, not many sellers. So in this situation, obviously the sell-through ratio and the margins were really, really high, right? These few sellers literally didn't have enough inventory, right? They probably all ran out of inventory. It was just massive 80, 90% sell-through ratio, 100% sell-through ratio. Every selfie stick that was online was selling, right? So sell-through ratio and margins on this were really high. At the same time, the best seller ranking, the volume, were really low, right? There just weren't that many people buying selfie sticks. So the BSR was non-existent, right? There was no selfie stick before the selfie stick. So there was no BSR, there was no volume, but the sell-through ratio and the margins were out of control, right? And again, sell-through ratio and margin allow us to see that, whereas BSR is just irrelevant. After people start buying the selfie stick, right? People are out there in the world every day taking pictures with their selfie sticks. People are walking up to each other saying, man, what is that thing? They're like, oh man, it's the selfie stick. You got to check it out. So this product is just virally, naturally spreading word of mouth like wildfire, right? There was no cost per customer acquisition. You did not need to advertise to find customers. Customers were finding you, right? So this was, again, buyers are just spreading the word like crazy. You just have tons of people out there buying selfie sticks. And at the same time, you start to see sellers, they start seeing the blog posts on the big blogs and they're saying, okay, I got to buy me some selfie sticks so I can sell these things. So again, it's going to take a few weeks for anyone to get these things in stock. So there was a few weeks here where the sell-through ratio was just 100%. The margins were out of control, and it was really the supply and demand of the market trying to figure itself out. Again, once buyers started spreading the word, the product started spreading like wildfire. You see more sellers entering the market to take advantage of that opportunity. So your sell-through ratio and your margins begin to drop at this point, right? But your BSR and volume are increasing like crazy, okay? So again, sell-through ratio is measuring supply and demand dynamics. BSR is measuring volume, right? After this first initial buying stage, that's when you're going to see lots of sellers flooding the market, right? This is when everybody knows about the selfie stick. They're just all over the place. Disney is banning the things. They're getting banned from stores and theme parks. They are all over the news, right? Everybody's talking about selfie sticks. They're just either love them or hate them. Everybody's talking about them. So this thing, again, is still spreading like wildfire. And pretty much any buyer who sees these things goes out there and buys one, right? So there's buyers just buying as they find out about these things. And at the same time, we see lots of sellers flooding the market as they figure out that this thing's going to be a consistent seller for at least the next couple months, and people are still talking about the things. Again, the more success people are having with it, the more imitators are going to enter into the market. So lots of sellers start to flood the market, and all the buyers who want one are buying it right now, right? So we start to see the sell-through ratio and margin continue to drop even more while the BSR and volume are still increasing here, right? And then at that point, everybody hears about the product, right? Now, all of a sudden, selfie sticks are old news, right? They've been on Saturday Night Live, they've been on the TV shows. Everybody's really made fun of them. They're just old news. So everybody who has heard of the selfie stick went out and bought a selfie stick, and they just don't want any more selfie sticks. This is when the market starts to die down. You have tons of sellers entering the market, and everybody's heard about the selfie stick. So if they wanted a selfie stick, they bought a selfie stick. So now the first initial sales craze is gone, right? And here's where the volume really starts to slow down. Or sorry, not the volume, but here's where the sell-through ratio and margins really start to drop quickly. And again, but at this point, you still see the BSR and the volume increasing ever more, right? It's just not going to stop. Eventually, suppliers are going to see a slowdown. So again, eventually, all these sellers that entered the market, at a certain point, they're going to say, oh my God, there's 1,000 other people selling selfie sticks, and I have 20,000 of these things in inventory. How am I going to get rid of these selfie sticks? So they stop buying from their suppliers. So the first person you're going to see is the supplier actually start to offload these things. They're going to start messaging people saying, hey, I got this really hot product called the selfie stick. Do you want one? They're going to start trying to sell their excess inventory. And pretty much all the sellers in the market as well are just going to start trying to offload their inventory. they're actually going to start getting afraid of the market topping, and that's when you see the real price battle start to begin. And your sell-through ratios and margins are still dropping here, and your BSR and volume pretty much stay the same. They even rise a little bit. So I hope it's really clear from this why BSR and volume are not a reliable metric to do this. Again, I really think that the people who started this whole BSR thing, I think they were just trying to figure out something like our sell-through ratio to kind of make people think that they know what they're doing. Again, if you base your business on bestseller ranking, you're basing it on volume, and that's a horrible way to base your business. It's just not good. So I think we got over that. The last thing I'm going to talk about here is the product life cycle. And this is probably something that a lot of people have seen in school, actually. Again, these aren't super complex business concepts. And yeah, it's kind of sad that all these other, quote unquote experts are pushing BSR. As you've seen, I think it's just irrelevant. So here's the product life cycle, guys. So obviously, when we first launch a product, product is first launched, sales growth is slow, right? People are just not aware of the product. The only thing we can do is advertise, right? So there's usually no profit in this first little bit because we have to go out there and advertise and actually make people aware of what the product is. So your cost per customer acquisition here is pretty high, and you're just not going to have as much profit here. Once you get into this growth stage, once you validate your product and people understand the product and they want the product, that's when you really hit that first growth phase. So you start to see sales growing rapidly. Persuasion advertising may be used. Again, this is where people are just entering the market, so you don't have to do that, introduction marketing. Now we can persuade them that our product's better than all the other products, right? Because they're out there, they want to buy the product, they're just trying to buy the best product, right? So this is where you're going to see the advertising change a little bit. The prices will start to come down a little bit even at this point because new competitors will start entering the market. Guys, you can see right here, I'm sure a lot of people are saying, oh man, new competitors entering the market. You are going to be the new competitor, okay? So what we're going to teach you to do with this program and this strategy that we're going to teach is to get in right here, right? We're going to teach you how to get in right at the beginning of the growth stage, how to recognize products that are in the beginning of the growth stage, and be able to ride that growth all the way into maturity, right? So yeah, profits are going to start rolling in at this point. Obviously, and guys, this could be years, right? It's not like this is a couple days. This could be anywhere from 1 day to 20 years. Who knows, right? It's different for every product. So once we get into that mature stage, that's when sales are going to start increasing more slowly, right? After everybody already knew about the selfie stick, anyone who want one bought one, right? So there's just not that many people still buying selfie sticks these days. You're going to see the sales still increasing, but much more slowly. There's going to be intense competition in the market. Again, now we're looking at Disney World selling their own selfie sticks. There's selfie sticks at the airport, right? Everywhere you go these days, everywhere you go these days, selfie sticks. So you have this intense competition in the market, and this is where we see competitive or promotional pricing may be used, right? This is where we start to see price wars. This is where we start to see margins start going down because no one wants to go with low margins, right? When you're in the growth stage, everybody's making great margins. Once we get into maturity, this is when we need to differentiate through pricing. So obviously, we want to get in the growth stage, try to ride as much growth as we can, and a lot of people are even try to get out of products once they get to maturity stage. Advertising expenditure is going to have to go up, right, to make people aware of your product over competitors' products, and profits are going to fall as new products are entering the market. And saturation, guys, again, this isn't like a chart I made, so you can see this is just typical, this is just normal business concepts that we're teaching here. As that product enters the saturation stage, that's when profits are really going to start falling, right? So again, we're trying to find unsaturated hot products, not products that have a high BSR, because a high BSR is right here, right? This is a high BSR, BSR number 1, right? There you go. Right when it starts to decline, that's where you're going to see the highest BSR. BSR here, who knows what it is, right? We care about the sell-through ratio. Sell-through ratio allows us to find products in the growth stage BSR allows us to find aged, products that we just don't care about, right? And then after the maturity stage, obviously we head into the decline. Another great example here is the iPhone 6 cases, or let's even say the iPhone 5 cases, right? When the iPhone 5, there were people coming out with iPhone 5 cases before there was even an iPhone 5, right? So those people here, obviously not having a great time before there was an iPhone 5. Once the iPhone 5 came out, you saw explosive growth, right? Just a huge jump in this growth area, and literally had 100 million people going out there and buying an iPhone 5 case. Once all those people bought their cases, now we're in the maturity stage, right? And yeah, there's some iPhone 5s being sold, and yeah, some people want new cases for their phone, but not any explosive growth, definitely not explosive growth. And then the iPhone 6 came out, right? And again, the BSR of an iPhone 5 case at this stage was probably really good, right? BSR of 10 or something, right? Once the iPhone 6 came out, so the BSR here of an iPhone 5 case would be, BSR 10 sell-through ratio of 10%, right? It would be a horrible sell-through ratio because there's no growth and there's just more and more sellers entering the market, more sellers trying to liquidate their inventory before the next iPhone comes out. So again, BSR was great. The sell-through ratio was abysmal. Once you get into this decline stage, once the iPhone 6 came out, all of a sudden nobody wanted iPhone 5 cases, right? So these just completely died off, and the sell-through ratio continued to be horrible, and the BSR just started to naturally follow down into the decline stage. So, so I think that's a good example. The iPhone 5 cases. So in the decline stage, you're obviously going to see sales fall. You're going to see the product lose its appeal, right? Why would anybody buy an iPhone 5 case? Even at this stage, we're starting to see this with selfie sticks. I'd say selfie sticks are still in the mature stage. Eventually, we're going to see a decline of the selfie sticks. People are going to say, I don't even care about selfie sticks anymore. Yeah, who cares, right? Don't love them, don't hate them. It's just selfie sticks. They're there. Stiff market competition, right? You have so many people that have entered this market now, so many people who have tons of inventory that are now going to have to realize that this product is done and they're going to have to liquidate that inventory, right? Get rid of it as quick as possible. So definitely stiff competition in the market. Advertising is reduced and then stopped. Again, this is when we hit that liquidation stage. Obviously, there's nobody out there really selling iPhone 5 cases, let alone advertising them anymore. So advertising is just slowly going to be reduced and finally stopped because, again, sellers are trying to get out of this market completely. They don't even want new inventory. They're just going to advertise to get rid of the inventory, and then they're done with it for good. So advertising reduced and then stopped. And then production may actually be stopped in the future. Again, I would be really surprised if they were still making iPhone 2 cases, right, or iPhone 1 cases. Eventually, they'll stop making iPhone 5 cases as well. So production is eventually going to be stopped on these, and literally the product just dies, right? It's just the end of the product. So guys, that's the product life cycle. And here is the product life cycle. I wanted to show this in one different way, and I'm pretty sure I've just beat this this BSR versus sell-through ratio thing into the ground for you guys, but I hope you guys are having a good time with this. So here's the product life cycle, the 4 basic stages of a product life cycle. So you can see, again, in the introduction stage, you have only the early adopters, right? It's only the people that really want that selfie stick, only the people that really want that iPhone, that Apple Watch, whatever it is. When you're first introducing it, those first pre-orders and everything, that's mostly early adopters. And we'll switch over to, let's try to switch over to the Apple Watch here so I can stop saying selfie stick. So, the Apple Watch, they come out with it, they introduce it, they announce it, and tons of early adopters are already on top of it, right? They're there ready to buy it. They don't even care what the product is. They're just like, I'm buying it. So you have a relatively small market. Again, you're not hitting that mainstream market yet. You're not hitting the bulk of the market. You're only going to hit at most 20%, if that, of the market. So your market's actually pretty small at this point. Your sales are pretty low at this point. Your competition's obviously pretty low at this point. And the business focus is awareness. Again, and even better than the iPhone watch, let's think about the first smartwatch, right? The first smartwatch that came out was really just early adopters, right? It was people that already knew what smartwatches was, and there was almost no competition for the first smartwatch ever. But nobody knew what a smartwatch was, right? So the big task was just making people know that smartwatches even exist, right? And then, after the introduction stage, and again, Apple is the perfect example of a company that fakes innovation, right? They make everyone think they're innovative. The reality of the situation is Apple sits there and watches this introduction stage. When things are about to hit the growth stage, that's when Apple comes in and tries to take advantage of them, right? So there were probably 100 smartwatches before the Apple Watch, but Apple said, okay, this is entering the growth phase, so now we want to make a watch, right? So again, when you're in that introduction stage, the business focus is awareness, even making people know that smartwatches exist and what they're for and why they're useful, why you should want one. First, we have to make the market aware of that, right? And the focus at this point is tuning the business, right? Developing the product, developing the pitch, developing how we're going to sell this thing. That's what really happens in this introduction stage. So it's a lot of work for not a lot of payoff, right? Once things enter that growth stage, which is where Apple tries to take advantage of and where you're going to try to take advantage of, that's when it starts to go into a mainstream market, right? Now everybody knows what a smartwatch is, right? It's not really awareness anymore. It's more about market share, right? Because people know what smartwatches are now. It's not like we have to sit there and say, well, smartwatches do this and you can use it for this. Now people know what smartwatches are. So now people start competing for market share more than awareness, right? Because the market is getting flooded in buyers, and the big business focus needs to be, how can I get the biggest percentage of those new buyers that are just flooding in with already aware? How do I get those people to buy from me, right, rather than my competitors? So market share becomes the challenge in this growth phase. And you can see that's when it starts to get into the mainstream market. That's when the market is growing. You have high sales, low to moderate competition, because people are just now starting to figure out that this is going to be a big product, right? And the earlier you can locate a product right here, the earlier you can get in this growth stage, obviously the more of that growth curve you're going to be able to ride. So it's much better, there's going to be a lot of people entering the market all throughout this thing, but the earlier you can get in, obviously the much better it's going to be for you. And then as a product becomes mature, we see the late adopters, right? When the iPhone came out, it was just huge. Everybody wanted a smartphone. Everyone wanted a smartphone. Hit the mainstream market, and it was on TV and stuff. And at a certain point, it just got late adopters, right? Everybody had a smartphone. Everybody had an iPhone. And now the only people that didn't have those smartphones were kind of the late adopters, right? So now you have a much larger market. It's a matured market, right? It's really grown. It's really pushing the limits of how far it can grow. So you have flattening sales, right? At a certain point in this maturation stage, you're going to see sales flatline. You're going to have high competition as more and more people are entering the market. Now you have Samsung saying, oh my God, we can make smartphones too. And Google saying, hey, we can make a better operating system for smartphones. So this is where the market starts to mature, much higher competition. And the challenge here becomes customer retention, right? Which is something we're going to cover really in depth in the later weeks of this Jumpstart program. So again, we're going to help you to really ride these growth curves the correct way, transitioning into customer retention when you need to. And the design focus here is support and creating a great customer and proper product experience, right? So again, this is where we see, think of Starbucks, guys. The Starbucks really got into the coffee market and the coffee shop market when things were just blowing up. At this stage, most coffee is the same, right? It's not like Starbucks coffee is that much better. A lot of people don't think it's even better than most things out there, right? So Starbucks now has to focus on the Starbucks experience and retaining those Starbucks fans. And that's how their business really exists now. So, and then the decline is obviously what we wanted to avoid. And yeah, this is where, obviously we're going to want to avoid this, and we'll teach you guys how to transition out of that as well. And the last thing I'll mention here, again, your highest sell-through ratio is going to be right here. This is going to be the highest point of your sell-through ratio. And that's what we're going to really focus on finding. Your maturity, the top of your maturity point, that's going to be your highest BSR, right? And I hope it's not painful for you guys for me to write this out. That's going to be your highest BSR, right? So this should really give you a good example of why the BSR just does not matter. I think it's a horrible metric. Again, a lot of the programs out there, they want to sell you a dopamine hit, right? They want to sell you feel-good business. We're trying to create actual businesses here. So, if our goal was just to help you get a product up on Amazon and have it look pretty and feel accomplished, then yeah, we could say, oh yeah, BSR, go with BSR. But the truth of the matter is, you're going to create a very unsuccessful business. You can visualize it right here, guys. If you're targeting the highest BSR, you're gonna have a very unsuccessful business, right? Your business is gonna go straight down from the start. If you target a high sell-to ratio, you're gonna have a great few years of your business before things even start to decline. So, I hope that makes it very clear. And let's move on.